So let's talk about Odysseus in America. Odysseus in America is a nonfiction book written by Dr. Johnathan Shay. I believe it's Jonathan. It's Dr. Shay for sure. Who, at the time of publishing, had worked with exclusively, basically, Vietnam veterans for 14 years. And he talks about the American soldiers' homecoming as like using Odysseus, the Odyssey, as a metaphor. I would say that by now, that is to say, like 2024, if you're interested in PTSD in any way, and if you've done like any research on it, he is not actually saying anything groundbreaking. Like you know what he's saying. However, the way he says things is so remarkable. It's he's very blunt. There's definitely like a sense of humor almost, although also his passion comes through his writing so strongly, and his compassion for veterans and for veterans' families and their loved ones who've been affected, right? He basically walks us through each part of the Odyssey and Odysseus's homecoming, adventure, misadventure, whatever. I think generally we're all familiar with the story. He has the Cyclops and there's the whirlpool, and when he finally gets home, he can't even be home, which is a huge issue, I suppose, theme, I don't know, about veterans returning home, especially for, well, I don't really want to say especially for, I don't know enough about, for example, the Afghanistan or Iraq vet experience, which you'd think I would, considering many of my cousins are vets. In fact, most of them, I suppose. Of course, at the time of writing Odysseus in America, it was only 2002. So I am sure Dr. Shay had plenty to say on the treatment of American soldiers as well. But he's still alive. He's like 80s something. Dr. Shay was never in the army himself, or military period. And apparently, I believe we learned this in Achilles in Vietnam, which I'm also reading right now. I'm going to try not to get the two confused. He admits that he's like, I didn't even know what PTSD was. He was like, you know, he was total non-informed. Everything he learned from his vets. And he learned, which he says quite explicitly, by listening, right? And that's the thing. That's what we all want, right? Is to be listened to. And I would argue we all want to be good listeners, right? You want to connect. That's what good listening is. His perspective is just so interesting. It's so insightful and incisive, and he's very aggressive about like right and just practices in the military, which is part of why I think it's important right now, seeing as we're all gearing up for war. I mean, we already are in war in many places in the world right now, but for America, we're gearing up for it, right? Like, that's definitely what the government wants us to get ready to do, is go to war. I'm not sure where it'll be, but I'd say right now it's pretty important time for thinking about soldiers and war and the treatment of our veterans. I am not a veteran, just for full disclosure. I'm also a family member, I guess. I mean, I say I guess, like everyone in my family is basically, almost everybody is in the military, served in combat tours. I did not, because I saw my mom in the military. It gave her a lot of pride, but it really does ask everything of you. And then the government in return gives you so little. I guess that's my soapbox. Thinking in particular of I believe it was Lewis Pullman, his suicide, which Dr. Shay expresses mostly through veterans' words, through the message board, or I guess email ring, I think it was. It's kind of one of the tricky things for me. I don't want to overstep the actual voices, you know? But anyway, that's why this is just a book review. Really, I promise. It's a very good book. One of the things that has really stuck with me from this, sorry to the person I recorded, it's a lovely day. Okay. Was the skills of war and what a soldier learns at war, what a soldier becomes proficient in at war. And they come back and, you know, many of these men and women are extremely proficient combatants, or whatever their specialty is, and they are unskilled labor. Right? Like, how shameful is that? I mean, that doesn't make any sense, does it? When you really look at it. I feel like Dr. Shay's perspective is one that is so important. I mean, the actual veterans are as well, but there is a distance that you kind of need from the actual disorder, right? To actually look at it objectively. That's why, even though it's basically been a special interest of mine, I know like nothing. But, you know, I've studied wars for most of my life. It's just, if anybody else who studies wars asked me any questions about it, they'd be like, you don't know anything. Because I don't know anything. Anyway, so Dr. Shay talks about the horses, what came through there. Talks about what's necessary for healing. And it is pretty obvious, in my opinion, and straightforward, and also unbelievably difficult, especially for a combat veteran. Can you imagine? Okay, so they are safety, sobriety, self-care. Those are like the three base that you need. Like, you cannot recover without that. If you try and have community without that, you're a lot less likely to actually genuinely have any recovery. What? No, he's so young. What? Okay. Anyway. That was fun. One of the concepts he talks about that I find particularly important is the authority of memory. Authority over memory, which you cannot have unless you are sober. Basically, is his argument, which I would agree with. Unfortunately for me. I just say that I smoke weed. And that counts. Right? Counts as drugging. Ooh, that's gorgeous. Going back to the skills of war, it includes stuff like I would like to read it verbatim, but like lying, bending the rules, distrusting the rules. I'm not quite sure where to go. Talks a lot about moral injury in Achilles in Vietnam, so I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that's also where he argues complex PTSD comes from, right? Is the moral injury. We in modern society undervalue the morality of things. We kind of do, in the name of practicality. Right? Numbers are good, so all's good, right? But that's not the case at all. So moral injury happens, he argues, when how do I want to put this? Moral injury happens when what is right is not done. Like when we do not live in it by a just world or whatever. Oh, that person is still at the bench. I don't want to record you. I do kind of want to record the lake. He argues that war injures men's moral character, and not just war, but of course that's his specialty. But injustices basically make men's moral certain I don't know their certainty that they can live and will live morally, like it's not the same anymore. Because once others have broken the rules, why should you bother, right? That's kind of why the one ruins it for the rest of us, right? When somebody takes advantage of a whatever, when someone breaks a rule, he talks about how an injury, a moral injury in the army is basically always injuring the entire army because it injures trust. It injures the ability to go out and actually fight a war, right? Because to die, you have to do it for someone or something you trust. That's why units are so much more effective. But the numbers, the cohort numbers, that again, that's going back into Achilles. We did this thing called cohort, and it proved that it created much better soldiers and fighting units. And then they were like, well, but the numbers aren't good, and so they stopped it. Why, though? Like, So there's a practice of shuffling in individual soldiers as replacements, and it literally kills people at a much worse rate than replacing entire units. It's like, what? What? I don't understand. I don't get it. Do you? Right? Like, hello, military? I'm really not talking enough about the book itself. It's just, there's so much to it. He talks about a lot of big concepts. He basically breaks down like PTSD to like its base like this dude has got the cause, the cure. He's got it all. He's got it all figured out. It's not quite that simple, obviously, but like something he brings up is a soldier's need for purification, or anybody who commits violence needs purification afterwards, like religiously. Like they, yeah. And our spirits are definitely something that we have put on the back burner in modern society, right? In the name of number go up, we sacrifice everything. It makes no fucking sense, does it? Like, how can it matter? Like, why the fuck did those people die? Why? Right? Why? It didn't have to happen. It didn't have to be that way. We knew better. I don't get it. So, like, there's like, apparently Satan is real and he's at the top of the military or something. Like, think about it. We know scientific, like, we have the proof of how to have a better world. The numbers are out there. The truth is there. We've studied it. We know that universal basic income produces happier, more productive people. We know that. We've studied that multiple times. We've tested it, and it's true. And so why aren't we doing that? So rich people can get richer? I don't get it. And cohort, that was in the like 90s. That was before fucking Afghanistan and Iraq, and I don't think anything changed as far as like individual replacement. I don't know. I guess I should Google that, but like, bro, how is it that we know these things, but we're not living them? We know scientifically what's good for people, right? We do. We know what's good for our bodies. We know what's good for our souls. We know what's good for our military. We know it's how to make peace possible. We know what causes violence, right? Like, we understand these things. We have fucking studies. So why are our governments the way they are? How is it that people are getting away with it? I don't get it. Because like I said, Odysseus in America, published 2002. I was 12 then, and I have read a lot about PTSD, CPTSD, soldiers, war experiences, you know, and I've never read him. And he is like so foundational I feel like he is in basically every other book that I've been reading, and I didn't even know it. He's really remarkably insightful. I never mark up my books, ever. Basically, I only started with a different book. It doesn't matter. But so this is number 2, and I've gone through and I've just gone through with the highlighter. I'll have to make a separate video and just kind of like flip through the highlighted sections and talk about things, because I'm telling you, man, this guy, he's heard it, he's seen what works, he understands, he has a truly holistic perspective. I really, really wonder what the VA is like now, and what the plight of the American soldier now. Maybe that's where I need to work. Genuinely something to think about. So one of the things Dr. Shay does is use Greek, like ancient Greek concepts. Like I believe there's thumos and theus. I don't remember. I would have to have it in front of me, but thumos, I believe, being the one that is most interesting to me, because it's there's this emphasis on culture, the entire culture mattering, you know. Community. I don't know, it's a good book. Yeah, thanks, okay.